The annual Munich Security Conference is a stage for global diplomacy. World leaders gather, they discuss pressing security challenges. In 2025, the conference took an unexpected turn. US Vice President J.D. Vance delivered a speech. It was a departure from the norm. He shifted the focus from external threats to internal ones. His words sent shockwaves through the assembled dignitaries. Vance's speech was a stark warning. He argued that Europe's biggest threat wasn't Russia or China. Instead, it was the erosion of its own values. He argued that European democracies were failing their citizens. He pointed to uncontrolled migration. He criticized what he saw as attacks on free speech. Vance painted a picture of a continent in crisis. This crisis, he argued, came from within. Vance's speech was a far cry from the usual diplomatic platitudes. He didn't shy away from controversy. He directly challenged the direction of European democracies. His words ignited a firestorm of debate. Some praised his honesty, others condemned his rhetoric. One thing was clear: Vance's speech would have lasting repercussions. Vance's criticism of European democracies was pointed and direct. He accused governments of abandoning their core values. He specifically targeted what he saw as the suppression of free speech. He cited examples of individuals being punished for expressing dissenting views. This, he argued, was a dangerous trend. It stifled debate. It eroded the very foundations of democracy. He also took aim at European migration policies. Vance argued that uncontrolled immigration had strained social cohesion. It had fueled resentment and division. He cited the rise of populist movements as evidence. These movements capitalized on people's anxieties. They offered simplistic solutions to complex problems. Vance's speech went beyond general criticism. He cited specific examples to support his claims. He highlighted a legal case in the UK. An army veteran was convicted for praying outside an abortion clinic. Vance presented this as an assault on religious freedom. He argued that it showed how far European societies had strayed from their values. He also criticized Germany's political landscape. He condemned the mainstream party's refusal to cooperate with the far-right Alternative for Germany, or AfD. Vance argued that this firewall was counterproductive. It alienated a significant portion of the electorate. It pushed them further towards the extremes. Vance's speech elicited a range of reactions. Some attendees were visibly uncomfortable. The silence in the room was palpable. When the initial shock subsided, a wave of condemnation followed. European leaders lined up to denounce Vance's remarks. They accused him of interfering in their internal affairs. They defended their commitment to democratic values. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius was particularly scathing. He called Vance's speech not acceptable and accused him of sowing discord. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas echoed this sentiment. She accused Vance of trying to pick a fight with Europe. The condemnation wasn't limited to Europe. Former US diplomats also criticized Vance. They argued that his rhetoric was damaging to transatlantic relations. However, not everyone was critical. Vance's speech resonated with some far-right groups. Alice Weidel, the AfD's chancellor candidate, praised Vance's remarks. She saw them as validation of her party's positions. Weidel reportedly met with Vance after his speech. This meeting further fueled concerns about Vance's intentions. Was he trying to embolden the far right in Europe? Vance's speech took place against a backdrop of heightened global tensions. The war in Ukraine cast a long shadow over the conference. Ironically, Vance only briefly mentioned the conflict. He expressed hope for a reasonable settlement following then-President Trump's announcement of planned peace talks with Putin. This statement raised eyebrows. It seemed to contradict the Biden administration's previous stance. Vance also met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The meeting was brief but cordial. Zelensky stressed the need for continued support from the US and its allies. Vance, in turn, reiterated the US's commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty. However, his earlier comments about a reasonable settlement lingered in the air. They raised questions about the US's long-term commitment to Ukraine. Adding to the intrigue, Russia declined to send a delegation to the conference. This was despite Trump's announcement of planned peace talks. The absence of Russian officials highlighted the deep mistrust between the West and Moscow. It also underscored the challenges of finding a diplomatic solution to the conflict. Vance concluded his speech by reiterating a familiar demand. He called on European nations to increase their defense spending. This has been a long-standing point of contention between the US and its European allies. Vance's speech did little to bridge this divide. If anything, it seemed to exacerbate it.